Hearing.
Y'all recently had to, like I heard your HOA had to repay the roads.
Let's see, setting up your meeting. But you look on your side so you can see it.
Y'all are.
No, we actually did, a special assessment for 3 years to the homeowners. So.
Just kind of zoom in.
And then, we went to apply and, got approved for a special assessment. So we did collection.
Do I have to?
3 years.
Can you see like the, is that a good vantage point? I can't see it. Do I hit done here? But does it say done?
So you have to travel out of town a lot for work?
Can you see like just the table there or whatever?
My actual office is in Houston, and all my staff is in Houston. Okay. So I am, normally here 1 week.
Sounds good, thank you.
So it's kind of, and then travel to different, clients and stuff and see them too.
That's not too bad.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it, bye. All right.
How you doing, man? It's good to see you. Are you going to be speaking to us today? Nice. Thank you for taking the time to come here, man. Want to get it right. Do you have any documents for us or anything like that?
No, I just have notes of question.
Okay. And you know that we did not go to once every 2 years on your credit. We did the same
I
thing.
also go this here until they.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. No, it's not like the whole thing earlier. You messed up. Yeah, some of them are done by, some of them are done by Colleen. And these are done by Colleen. Done by, Mrs. Shaw. That's the way. I'm glad you're here.
Yes. Do you bring those up there?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't believe those.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, It's big, that's one. You want us?
Good evening.
Two speakers to be heard.
Okay, and I received an email from someone.
Okay.
Good.
Somebody left their keys back here. It's not that kind of party. I left it everywhere.
Three,
Three citizens to be heard.
and one to be written.
Yep. And I just make sure, you also want to speak on items 3 and 4? Yes. Okay. All right, excellent.
And this.
Is this wild and crazy, guys? No. Okay, it is. It is 5:01, kind of a standard, we just have a moment of silence. All right. It is now 5:02, and it is September 23rd, 2024. It's 5 p.m. We're going to have a meeting with the Board of Directors of Aransas County Appraisal District. Do we have any citizens to be heard?
I'd like to do roll call to make sure.
Roll call, yes, ma'am. Jeff Hutt. Here. I'm here.
Madison
That's it.
and Quinn Collins. Thank you.
So we have absent would be Kayla Austin, Kevin Lambert, and Anna Marshall, the tax collector assessor. Emailed me today saying that she would not be able to make the meeting. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Do we have any citizens here?
Yes, we have,
Do you have a quorum?
We have a quorum.
How many members of the board do you have, sir?
We have 3,
How many members of the board are there?
5.
Anna Marshall's part of the board. You have 6.
6 counts towards the quorum.
That's correct.
Yes. So if she was here and we had 2, we could have a quorum.
we have a voting for.
We have a voting quorum. Okay.
All right, so, let's see, Citizen Jack Wright would like to be heard on numbers 3 and 4, not during public comment.
Correct.
Okay.
And I may not speak, I'll let Ms. Anderson
Just
speak
do-
first.
Okay, I just want to give you the opportunity in case you wanted to. Citizen Scott. Yes. Citizens to be heard? No?
No.
Okay, so you want to speak under a specific agenda item?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. You asked if I wanted us to, if I was a citizen to be heard,
Right.
and I was not going to speak until I understood what some of these agenda items dealt with.
Did you say 3 and 4?
3 and 4.
Okay.
3 and 4, fine.
Good.
Sounds good. And then, let's see, Citizen Kathy Henderson, 3 and 4. Yes, ma'am. All right, and then I received an email late this afternoon from James Godfrey. The email stated, attached is a letter sent to Aransas County Appraisal District by certified mail on August 23rd, 2024 to Board Chairman Hutt. As of this date, I have had no reply. I would like to have this letter entered into the official minutes of your next board meeting during citizens to be heard, as I am unable to attend. Thank you, James Godfrey. And the letter states, August 23rd, 2024, dear Chairman Hutt, I'm formally filing this complaint against Chief Appraiser Mike Soto in 2023. I filed for a protest hearing on the property at 722 East Murray Street, Rockport, Texas. Bullet point 1, 722 East Murray Street, Rockport is a block constructed duplex with a metal roof in South Rockport built in 1979. But the appraisal district has an effective year built in 1999. Mr. Soto at the ARB hearing could not explain why this change was made other than I have replaced 2 central air conditioning units. Bullet point number 2, land. Appraisal district has 100 feet on Church Street when the subject property only has 50 feet on Church Street and is valued at $80,000, while comparable presented to the review board would justify $40,000. Mr. Soto was made aware of this discrepancy. Class. The appraisal district has subject in class 4, same as Whistler's Cove, built around 2008. 722 East Murray Street was built in 1979. Class 3 specifically is for block-built structures with metal roof. Mr. Soto was made aware of this error. Comparable sales. Appraisal district is using newer single-family homes when duplex and triplex sales are available. Mr. Soto advised the appraisal review board not to consider those sales. I asked for a hearing before the appraisal review board on May 2023 and was given a hearing on October 2023. Not satisfied with the ARB decision, I applied for arbitration to the state comptroller's office in November of 2023, which cost $500. The hearing was held without my knowledge or notification. Mr. Soto knows how to contact me. I have requested through the comptroller's office that the decision in favor of the appraisal district be vacated. I received this year's tax statement using contested tax value from last year. I have been licensed in real estate since 1989 and a real estate broker for 25 years. I'm not an attorney. Perhaps consulting one needs to be my next step. Thank you, James Godfrey. Record.
in response to that, just a little bit of response to that, there was a certified letter, that was, mailed to Chairman Hunt. The chairman was made aware that there was a letter, so we weren't gonna open that letter. It was addressed to you, so, and that was made, the day after we received the letter, maybe 2 days after we received the letter. And, so I just want to say for the record that it's not out of, I mean, obviously you read it into the record, so there you go.
All right. So moving on to the consent agenda, all consent agenda items are listed or considered routine by the Aransas County Appraisal District Board of Directors and will be enacted in one motion and no separate discussion of these items. Will occur unless an Aransas County Appraisal District Board of Directors so requests. In such cases, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Would anybody like to remove any of these items?
So I just want to make sure your procedurally for agenda item number 1, I was not a seated board member at that time, so I don't believe that I could ratify those minutes. I was not in attendance at the meeting either. So can we pull that one?
Okay. So, then approval, item number 1, under the approval item number 1 and move it down to 3. The June 13th meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to remove item number 1 from the vote because we won't have a quorum if Mr. Oger is abstaining on that vote since he was not a board member at the time.
Good point. Okay, so we will table.
So you're going to table number 1, consent agenda item number 1 for future meeting.
Good.
All right, and what about 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6? Do I have a motion?
Move it down.
I second the motion. All in favor?
Secretary, just for the record, I
Yes.
know I'm not a board member
That's
changing
okay.
this, but on the June 13th thing, if you go to the second page on agenda item number 16, middle of the thing, it says Mr. Chaney. That should be Mr. Cheney. So if you want to make that correction prior to the next meeting, so that could be. Does that make sense?
Okay, hang on,
Item number 16.
To the third one.
Oh, 16, got it.
It's Jack Cheney, I guess was supposed to say the.
Correct. Not Channing, it's Cheney.
Okay,
If you want to make that, it's a minor correction.
so what I'd like to do, and again, I'll be sending it back to, since she has the file, she can make the correction, submit it back, and we get to go.
Sounds great.
Okay, and along with any other small corrections that were made, since we're gonna table it next time meeting. Okay, name spelling, stuff like that, small. All right, and so we on.
So how many, believe, approved remaining 5?
Yes, we did.
I didn't hear vote that or vote.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
we vote.
Michael, do you have copies of all those minutes?
I do.
Okay, I just wanted to know that, I'd like to have copies.
Certainly.
I'll get that later. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to agenda item 3, discuss and take possible action on issuance of RFP for a private appraisal firm to perform the appraisal services for the district, and this is tax code 25.01. This was, I pulled the language right out of the code. As y'all know, PMA and their representatives in the back there, they currently are doing they're doing our industrial, our utilities, our ag, and our personal business, personal property, and minerals.
But it's personal property, so it's not all personal property.
And what I did was this. It's in front of you. When I was going over to and talking to some of the other appraisal districts,
Can I have a copy of that, sir?
okay,
And I have something as well to present after you speak.
when I,
Thank you.
when I went over to B County, I found out that they appraise everything through third-party appraisers. And so their total appraisal package was $485,000. And that included, I mean, within this includes the website, includes the deed processing, which we already paid. The Eagle View is, I believe, a type of, it's the same sort of aerial photography that we use. We already have a contract with P&A for what I mentioned. I believe there's some issues with the other. I've talked about it, there's something in there that I believe there's some issues with that. But I don't think that's anything that, I think we can just reissue a contract to them and I'll bring that up, I don't think that's fine. But while we're kicking tires, I would like to see, I'd like to go out and put out a proposal for somebody to do our residential, our commercial, and our I will do our somebody go out and do our commercial, our residential, and our personal business. I think that we should, at least at this time, go out and kick some tires and see what the cost of those firms are. Would you please, yes, address the, I'm sorry, say it and state your name.
Jack Wright, and I just want to make sure that you're covering the ground that you want to, because it's not a critical question. But I only heard you say residential and commercial personal property, is that correct? Business or property? Yes, sir. What about ranch? What about minerals? What about?
So there is no property called ranch. Are you talking about ag?
Well, they don't all have ag exemptions. There are rural properties that are considered not ag.
Can I get a, okay, so to your point.
All right, let me rephrase the question.
We at this time have a contract. In good faith, we signed a contract with P&A, and that contract lasted for 4 years. And that contract, there were 2 contracts actually. One contract for ag and another one for minerals, utilities, industrial, and personal property associated with minerals. So we are in a good faith contract with this gentleman and this firm for the next 2 years. I am suggesting that the other categories that we have, residential, commercial, business, personal, am I missing any other categories?
There's lots of other state categories, but that's okay. The general sense is understood.
All the other categories we have that we put out a request for bids and see how much a company would cost us to do those appraisals.
I think you just answered my question, but
Yes,
let me
sir.
rephrase it.
Yes, sir.
Are there any divisions within the tax code of appraisals that you would be leaving out under this proposed contract? That's the only question I have.
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
There's a couple of things. I'll jump in before either, or is a public comment first, or
Let's do the public comment.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kathy Henderson, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Rockville Fulton Independent School District, and I am representing Rockville Fulton Independent School District. a couple of things I have, some questions, we go on. Some of the things that you mentioned, I want to just, one, I want to clarify. So are you gonna go out for an RFP? Or are you strictly already gonna go with this company that you have currently have a contract with?
The company that we have a contract with, no ma'am, we are not. We are gonna honor that as a good faith contract with them. What I am making a suggestion that we do is go out for an RFP for the other appraisal categories that we now do in-house.
So, one question is, do you plan to start this in 2025 or in later years? The appraisals are as of January 1 of whatever year, so next appraisal will be January 1 as of 2025. Are you proposing that you get this determined by 2025, or are you looking at doing this in future years?
In 2026.
So you're looking at this being.
No, I do not, I do not know that, ma'am. One of the reasons I would like to go out to this, I would like to find out what the I don't really know quite. What I want to do is for them to tell us if it's possible to go out to 2025. I don't want to rule that off of what we're doing.
Okay. If you go out, if this was to start in 2025, is this part of the reappraisal plan that was approved on September 11th by the board?
Is it part of the reappraisal plan?
So we all, at the September 11th board meeting, I was not able to be here, but our superintendent was.
Yes, ma'am.
And part of that, y'all adopted.
No, it will not change the functioning of the reappraisal plan in any way.
Okay. Was the cost of this included, if this were to happen in 2025, is the cost of this included in the budget that was approved on September 11th?
There was a cost that was associated with residential, commercial, and the other appraisals that was already been approved. This would be, if not to rule it out, but if we were to do it in 2025, I guess we would have to do a budget adjustment with you. And the way this works is that we would, if we decide to do this, we would pass a resolution as a board, and we would send a letter to the school district asking them if y'all could pay, if you would pay us less next year.
And you know it's gonna be less?
Ma'am, I would not consider an appraisal.
Well, I know for the school district and the other tax entities, our budget is already adopted.
Yes, ma'am.
And, well, let me finish please, sir. Our budget is already adopted. The other entities will be adopting theirs within the next month. I don't know the exact dates. So our budget is adopted as well as theirs based on a price of what you gave us. And so that is what we have budgeted. So if this price were to go over that for the whole year and increase your budget overall for the whole year, then that would affect all taxing entities.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'd like to make a statement. The agenda item as it reads is to discuss and take possible action on the issuance of an RFP, which is a request for a proposal or a request for a quote.
Yes, ma'am.
We're not saying we're accepting a quote.
I
We're asking,
understand
we're
that.
asking for quotes, okay? Period. I have a fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers, to school district, to ensure that the funds under the budget that I have approved are in the best interest.
Okay.
And so it's not in the best interest for me to go out and approve some sort of a quote or a bid that's way above what we budgeted. So I think, I'm glad for the questions, I'm glad you're asking the questions, but I think that the agenda item is simply to state that we need to know what prices are out there. We don't know. Sure, maybe we can get a better deal and not charge the school district as much. Okay, so that's, but we won't know that until we get quotes back.
Okay.
And that's all we're doing under agenda item 3 is request information. for a
Has
quote.
an RFP been made yet for this service?
No, that's what we're just.
It will be included in writing of the RFP.
Well, I would ask that I guess that's to be determined by this. Yes, ma'am, it's conversation.
Will wording and scoring of the RFP of a private appraisal firm include higher scores for firms that have more experience in rooftop appraisals versus industry of minerals, because Aransas County, as we all know, is higher in rooftop than industry and commercial. And there is differences in ways of appraising commercial versus rooftops. Aransas County, as we all know, Aransas County is much higher in rooftops than we are commercial or minerals. And so there is a difference in the appraisal process that will be done.
I'm not too sure how to respond to this. I will tell you this, though. The appraisal process is defined by law and the way it's done. So if we were to hire a third-party firm who does appraisals, we would expect for them to follow the law and to do it correctly.
So again, my question, yes, but this one firm may be more, what's what I'm looking for? Stronger, have more material for industrial or minerals or such versus a rooftop firm. You may have a firm that specializes more in rooftop. And so I think if you're going to go out for an RFP and you're going to score that, part of your score needs to be an appraisal of a firm that is higher in rooftop than in industrial.
Yes, ma'am. So if I just repeat this, we have a contract that has run for 2 years and runs for another 2 years. It's with the company P&A, and that appraisal contract that we already have includes agriculture, industrial, utilities, and those. So what you talked about, we will not. We will be looking at the RFP would be for an appraisal firm that specializes in commercial and what you call rooftop, which would be residential. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so again, I would request that in the scoring spectrum, this is when we score, when we've gone out for construction bids, we have, we weight it higher depending on what there is or is. I would request, excuse me, that the scoring have a higher ranking for a company that specializes more in rooftop versus in minerals or land or commercial.
If I could you, since you have a history of doing this that far exceeds anybody here, could you lend us a hand and help it with us and maybe send me an email with the things that you would like to see, and I would certainly include them.
I can look into that and see.
Yes,
I don't know everything that's there, but
yes, ma'am.
I've not done appraisals on this end, but we have
But you have
done
done
contracts.
Yes, ma'am.
If a private firm is hired, will the appraisal district have a representative that can be contacted by the entities for questions and notifications from the state and get those out to us in timely manner? I know, for instance, a lot of times right before we go out for break, for Christmas break, and we usually will get an email from Mr. Soto and from an attorney firm that we use for our state appraisals. They send us something saying, okay, this is going to come from the state comptroller's office, and it's going to come probably December 15th, and we're letting out the 16th or 17th, and sometimes the 15th, or whatever the date is, and it has to be returned back to the state by January 15th. So if it's something that's missed and we don't get notice of that, that could be very detrimental to the districts if we don't have time to go back and appeal what the state is doing as their appraisals.
Yes, ma'am. That would definitely be considered.
Okay. Will private firms be told that they will not have access to real estate sales to help them determine the market value? This is something the state has access to, but our appraisal district does not. And then the state's value must be within 5% so that the school district does not lose funding annual payroll recapture. So that what I'm saying is, the firm needs to know when they come in that our board of realtors voted many years ago, and I don't remember exactly when, that our appraisal district does not have access to sales. So that makes it harder to do an appraisal when you don't have market value of what's being sold, but the state does have that. And so that is something we have detrimental to that.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
could be very detrimental to us.
To kind of to follow this up, across the state, no appraisal district has access to the sales. But
No,
you're right.
sir, that is not, I do not believe that to be true.
Do you know what counties, if you could give me a list of
I'm not
counties?
gonna do that job for you,
No,
sir.
ma'am.
I have my own job to do.
Yes, ma'am.
My job is to say that in Aransas County, because for many years, the appraisal district did have access to the sales, but the board of realtors determined that they were not gonna give that to the appraisal district. So I'm not gonna do your job and go out and do that for you, but I will say that is very detrimental. I know the appraisal district, because that's why they go out and do hands-on looking appraisals versus pulling up because the market value is what a house sells for. I may think my house is worth $300,000, but if it's only gonna sell for $200,000, then that's the market value. I may think my house is worth, I wanna say it's only worth $100,000, but if it's gonna sell for $200,000, then that is the market value, and that is what the state uses when they're determining the property values for the county.
Yes, ma'am. So to answer your question, yes, we will get a professional company who does this, who works with, who knows how to work without having this information, and who has a past.
They need to be told this, not
Yes,
just you're gonna assume this. They need to be told specifically, you will not have access to the sales in Aransas County.
Yes, ma'am.
Has the long-term effects been researched and advised by other entities, including pros and cons of this? Of changing the way we do appraisals?
And we are just going out to look to see how much, we are not changing the way we're doing appraisals. We are doing the appraisals.
Well, if you're doing it by a
So,
firm
let me finish. We are not changing the way we are doing appraisals. Appraisals have to follow the law. We will not find appraisals. All we are going to do now is to ask for an RFP to see if it is economically beneficial for the appraisal district to go to a third-party vendor. And if the economics are there, then as we discuss the economics, then I will definitely make it a point to go and ask elected officials how they feel.
Before you approve the RFP, the new contract.
Yes, ma'am, but you have to understand that at the end of the day, this board approves a contract. And if you, the entities have two solutions. If you do not like a board member and want to see a board member removed, there's a process by which you can do that. And two, if you do not like an action or a resolution taken by an appraisal district board, there's a method by which you can do that. And both of those are lined out in the state statutes. So if we do something that you do not like, there is a process for which to rectify that.
Okay, but like what you said a minute ago, though, is that before you approve something, you said you will go out to the entities, to the elected officials, and see if they agree with it.
Yes, ma'am, I will get their opinions.
Okay. Because a rush decision, and I think 2025 is a rush decision to do this, could make a dramatic change in the way, and I understand what you're saying, appraisals are done by the state law, but there's a difference than having members that have worked here, have years of experience, live here, know the area, versus an outside entity that does not, especially on rooftop real estate. So if you are doing this as a rush decision, and this happens to get approved by 2025, and I agree, and I do appreciate you looking at the overall value, what it is, but there's more than just, is it gonna be cheaper to do it this way? That there could be a lot more effects long-term that we're not aware of, that I think should be more researched and looked into, talk to other entities that do use appraisal firms versus using in-house people. Because again, quick decision, you've got 2025, you've got 2 months. You've got 2 major holidays in there. So most people or businesses are shutting down, whatever, for at least the last 10 days of December. And for the most part are not in business for the week of Thanksgiving. So now you've already taken out 8 weeks. You're taking it to 6 weeks that you're going to make a decision that will be effective 2025. So I would request that the long-term effects of this, not just pricing, we do appreciate you looking at that, but there could be long-term effects that you're not aware of if you're only looking at one piece. You've got to look at several pieces of the puzzle and see how it all fits in.
Yes,
This is also not just the best interest of the entities, but also best interest of our citizens, who we all represent. Again, I would like to say our ISD would request that if the appraisal board is interested in looking into hiring a private firm, that this not be done until at least 2026 at the earliest, so that the full term effects and pros and cons for the entities and the citizens of Aransas County are able to be researched and see what the full term effect will be. That is all I have to say on.
Yes, ma'am. When, if I could, 2 years ago, when the appraisal district decided to use, go out and use PMA for their appraisal form, did y'all come to the appraisal district and make these requests at that time?
That because we have such low amount of minerals, that does not affect us a whole lot as it does rooftops, and no, we did not.
Okay.
But that would be the reason.
all right.
Okay. In reference to the agenda item, which is 2501B, if you'll go to that.
Sorry,
Is there other citizens?
Yes, a point of order. Is there other citizens who,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Wagner, you spoke and said you might. Yes, sir, go ahead, I'm sorry. So there, yes, sir, you want to speak on the next agenda item, I believe? Yes, sir. Here, I'm sorry, ma'am.
That's okay, not a
Since I
problem.
spoke, since I signed up for number 3, I don't see a recording device.
I've got one here.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so. Sorry, Mr. Organizer, about you, it is procedurally correct, even if you don't know that.
Sir, can you please get control of the meeting?
Yes, sir.
We're supposed to do this orderly, and I get tired of this every meeting. This guy just keeps talking out of turn, and at some point I'm asking.
Did I
Yes, sir.
sign up for item 3?
You're not at the podium, you're not addressing us as a board. I'd like you to please remain silent, you're going to give the floor.
Fair enough.
Okay, in regard to the agenda item number 3, it refers to section 2501, and I gave each of you a copy of that. I'm going to read it into the record. The chief appraiser, with the approval of the board of directors of the appraisal district, may contract with a private appraisal firm to perform appraisal services for the district, subject to his approval. That's important. It's not a directive by the board to the chief to go do a thing. It's a directive from the chief with the approval of the board to go contract for services. So there's a concept there, and this is written in the law for a good reason. Like, let's just say hypothetically that I was not pleased with Richard Knappett. I would have the ability to come to the board and say, hey, listen, I'm not pleased with their performance. They don't give us timely and accurate appraisals. Can we go out for an RFQ? That's another thing that's really important. RFP, I don't believe is the correct term. I'm not an attorney, but the way I understand it, we're going to move forward to, it's going to be 6.11, and that was also given to you, and this is in the property tax code. Under 6.11, it says purchasing and contract authority. An appraisal district is subject to the same requirements as the same purchasing and contracting authority as a municipality under 252 of the local government code. So then we go to 252. What does that say? That was given to you as well. And there's only 2 pages that I refer to this. I circled the first one or box the first one. It's the purchasing and contract authority for municipalities. And then if you go, the very next item that's indicated there is the award of contract. That's under 2.52043, the award of contract. And then if you move to item subchapter or subsection I, as in image, it says this section does not apply to a contract for professional services as the term is defined by section 225.002 of the government code. So then it takes us to this other place where we have to go to this other sheet of paper, which is the government code. Now the government code of 2254 under subsection is the definitions. Under subsection 2, I've boxed for you professional services. Under subsection I, it's VIII, which is Roman numeral 8. It says real estate appraising. So that is a professional service that's defined in the government code. When you move to the next page, it's 2254.003. Selection of provider, fees. A government entity may not select the provider of professional services or a group or association of providers or award the contract of the services on the basis of competitive bids submitted for contract or the services, but shall make the selection and award, number 1, on the basis of demonstrated competency or competence and qualifications to perform the services and for a fair and reasonable price. So it's telling you this is an RFQ rather than an RFP. And what's important about that is that should it be done for a fair and reasonable price? Yeah. Do you want to know that information? Absolutely. But the major thing, and I would agree with the comptroller for the school district, is competency and qualifications. I'd like to draw your attention at this point to the documents that I submitted to you, which are these 2 documents. You have a spreadsheet here, and you have like a map. Now, what's important about that is that we asked, hey, if you were to go out for bid or go out for RFQs for all of this, that, first of all, I would ask the question, why? Is it because in the current state we're not having timely or accurate appraisals? I don't believe that's the answer. I believe it's just an exercise to know whether the district at large can save money. Is that a fair statement? Was that the reason that this was written, Chairman? Or was anybody else contacted by an entity? Was anybody else contacted by an entity?
So, to answer your question first, why is this written? Because when I found out that there are appraisal districts that use third-party appraisers, and I noticed that our budget kept on going up and up. I wanted to look for an alternative to up and up. So my idea is to kick the tires and to see what is available.
So it was a pricing thing, right? Is that pricing?
Some of it has to do with, I believe taking appraisals out of the district and out of the community, and really having third-party appraisers would take some of the, I think it'd just be good for the overall appraisal process.
And I guess I would ask, was that your thought, or were you like, hey, you were talked to by your entity and said, hey, can you figure out a way for our appraisal budget to go down? Was this your idea, or was it somebody else's idea?
I don't necessarily know what relevance that has.
Well, it's a relevance whether this was birthed by you, by yourself, or whether, like, if it was a joint consensus, I could understand.
So you mean if all of the entities came around and they told me that they needed to lower the price, and this is what did this, or if I, as the chairman of the appraisal district, have decided it's in the best interest to see like what financial options we have out there and pursue them?
Yeah.
Yes, it was done by me.
It was done by you. Okay, thank you very much. So moving forward, a piece of evidence that I have is this map. Now, this map is important because it represents all the squares. I gave you one, did I not? You can have another one?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I guess I want to make a comment
Yes, ma'am.
to your statement. And that was it. No, but that, our duty is to find out in general. I don't know that any one person came to you, but I do know that I attend commissioner's court
They're always looking for ways to save money. I do attend school board meetings, I'm hearing that all the time as well, I attend city council, I attend that district. Everybody's been out asking and wanting to know what they can do to cut costs. And so this came about kind of in general in the community.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm not sure if that's a correct statement, it may be, but at the same time, I just want to make that statement.
Thank
And it's
you.
in general out there everywhere.
So,
cutting
Yeah, and
costs.
I did want to
What
say,
can we do? And so I think that it was approached.
okay, good.
So what I like
Thank
to do though, I think a lot of these things that we're talking about, deal with after we do it. I like to go ahead and call the vote.
Well, wait a second, I haven't finished my presentation, sir.
I mean, I determined that it's late. All right, please be quick about it.
Well, what I'd like to say is it's very good for this board to consider the financial implications, right? That's a good thing in general. What I wanted to discern, whether it was any other thing, whether it was late appraisals or untimely appraisals or inaccurate appraisals, but it has to do just with the bulk of like, hey, this is how much it costs to do appraisals here. And if that's the mode and if that's the mindset, then that's understood. My only caution would be is just much like what the comptroller for the ISD had just indicated, that you have to look at all of the differences. And what I want to impress upon you is that you should act cautiously when considering all these things. You should act slowly. You should get all the information. In my quick putting stuff together, I came up with all of these items. Now I want you to look at just the general location of these items, of these counties. Most of them are to the west and to the north. Those are primarily rich in minerals. They're primarily rich in ag properties. And I want to say, and I have a representative here from P&A, that P&A and companies like him, like theirs, were born out of the mineral and industrial utility industry. They weren't born out of, hey, we're an appraisal company starting with residential and land. Did I misspeak in that? Or is that a fair statement? Yeah. And so in this, if you look, the ones that are closest to us down here along the coast, those are the ones that we have in your spreadsheet right here. What's important for you to recognize, look at the majority of the value of the state category. The top one is highlighted in yellow. So for Refugio County, a quarter of their properties is mineral utility. If you go to B County, their ag property represents 50% of all of their value. If you look at mineral industrial, it represents a quarter of all of their value. When you go to Karnes County, the minerals and utility is 76% of their entire value database. When you skip us and go to Calhoun, which is another coastal county, nearly 50% of their stuff is mineral and industrial. And when you look at that and you compare it to ours, we're the only one that's the oddball. If you look, the residential, what she described as the rooftop appraisal, represents more than 72% of all of our appraisals. And so what I would just caution the board is to be very mindful of that. Whenever you go for an RFQ and to get some good information for people, for appraisal firms that are qualified to do this, are they qualified to do this in such a way where they can provide this level of detail for the residential and mineral? Residential and land. That's all I want to say. And you should do beyond this, you should do more research to see, like beyond these counties that are represented here, because this is just information that's associated with Pritchard and Abbott. There's Wardlaw out there, there's Capital Group, Eagle Services. Yeah, they're just, I would just caution the board when moving in this direction. And I would also point out that it is an RFQ, not an RFP. I'm not an attorney, but I think that that's right.
The agenda item is RFP, not RFQ. So there is a distinct difference between an RFP and an RFQ.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I just to make a comment on these, there's 5 counties listed here. As the old saying goes, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right?
And that's a good one.
But, you know, I understand fully what you're saying, but I would point out that the graphic here, as you have represented as a percentage, is on total value, not on parcel number.
That's correct. That's correct.
Calhoun County has nearly 18,000 of their 27,600 properties that are residential and land. So that, even though that only represents 23% as far as total value, that actually represents somewhere north of 60% as a total.
That's an excellent point. And to our point, there's so much weight associated when you do a property value study. They're looking at it from a property value weight, and they do what's called stratums. So in this, even though there's roughly 18,000, there's only a quarter of that value that's there. And so it has less of a weight. That's a really good point. It actually goes to our favor, while like when you look at ours, we're 24,000, approximately 24,000 of the 29. All of our weight is in this front end.
Okay, so on that, I read the what do you call it, the PBS from
Right.
the Aransas Pass, which is a smaller sample size, so I can digest it. I did have a question because everything I read in there, it looked like it was vacant land and residential properties. I don't recall seeing anything that jumped out to me as being commercial properties or minerals or anything like that. Is that because those other stratums that you're discussing, those passed?
Or there wasn't enough of a sample set for them to test with one of the two. I'm not looking at it right now, but that's
because you only got that little sliver that in Aransas County.
It's half of a school, or not even half. It's like a sliver of a school district.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay. Just consider it. Just go slow. I think it's an RFQ. It's not an RFP in my opinion, but I'm not an attorney.
I can just tell you, speaking solely for myself, as a member of the board, not the board of the whole, don't get me wrong on that. I plan to look at everything very deliberatively. Some questions that I would have would be, I'd like to, whatever company comes to us through this process, I'd like to look at their past history with the PBSs, their track record, if you will. I'd like to also know what percentage of their properties that they appraise fall into the protest. And I know people can protest sometimes. It doesn't always, you know, there may not be a good faith effort there, but I think that's at least a data point for consideration.
Yeah, you bring up.
And then I don't know if you can know if there's statistics on whether or not the district prevails or the property owner prevails to the ARB process. But you know, it's just something to know. Like if our appraisers here are going to the ARB on a high percentage of properties, but they're prevailing for the most part, well, then that means that, you know, that that's giving themselves they are given an A by the ARB, if you will. If the opposite is true, that has a tendency to bring that grade down. So I like to know anybody that comes to us for this service, I like to know what their track record is based on those data points and like the gentlelady here talked about a weighted system. I think that's proven as well. I don't think you could take 6 or 7 data points and give them equal consideration, because some things are of more importance than others. So these are all things that I would like to see. I'm not prepared. And for background on this, I was just made aware maybe 2 or 3 months ago that this was even a possibility, that there were. I have a friend that's on another appraisal board in another county, and he was likewise very shocked to hear that this is even a thing. And so I came into this, I have not had discussions about this. I got an agenda. I don't even know what day it was, Thursday, Friday, I guess, whatever day it came out. And so I'm hearing all this. So this is all falling on fresh ears for me.
Gotcha.
But I'm taking notes here, everybody is talking. Yeah. And I'm going to do my best. That is my pact, if you will, with not only the district, but the members of the public, that I will do my due diligence before I take part in any vote to make a drastic change, such as what we might be considering. But I did see this as just a preliminary step.
Can I make another comment along that same line, which I appreciate you saying that. And I know the appraisal district and their team cannot go out for RFQs, but you should have the same information as you're asking, which is a very good point of, okay, what kind of arbitration hearing, how different are they from the state? you need to be able to compare that to what you already have against an RFQ, and unfortunately, they can't go out for RFQ for themselves, but you have that information, so you will be able to do that as a comparison.
Yeah, value defense is a huge thing. When you talk about comparing value defense, like that's a huge thing. And then representing those things in an ARB hearing, it's huge. So like for Pritchard Gavitt, when they come and do minerals, they're doing the whole thing. Like they're doing all of the mineral documents, they're doing all the rebuttal evidence, they're representing that property, both industrial or mineral or whatever that is. And we're just like, we're setting the date and the time, and that's it. When you get into residential and land, you have to think like how intensive that is. When you get into situations like what this is kind of generally describing, you get into what's called a chief appraiser caretaker. And really he or she does not set land tables, they don't get into models, they don't get into value defense, they don't get it, they see the PBS on the back side. Like it's a caretaker kind of position. And so you just need to be mindful of all those things when considering, like the whole thing. So.
All right. So if I can have a point of order, Mrs. Henderson said that it may not be an RFQ.
RFQ. Should be an RFQ, so you want to amend the agenda?
I like to amend the agenda item.
And the motion to.
In the motion. So I make a motion that we put a request for RFQs for private appraisal firms to provide appraisal services for the district for all categories not included in current contracts.
I have a point of order on that. I don't know that we can amend the agenda, and change something substantive because that would violate notice, in my opinion. I don't think we have that authority. If we're gonna substantively change from RFP to RFQ, that's a substantive change, and the public has to have advance notice. Because y'all agree?
So I guess,
I don't.
so it's a request for a proposal to do work or a request for a quote to do work? It's
Qualifications.
Qualifications.
Qualifications, not qualifications.
That's why I walked through those government codes for you.
We can still, okay, let me, if I can, let me back up. We can still ask for a proposal.
Yes.
I'm gonna send it to the board that's not going to be enough for me to make a vote moving forward to enter a contract. Okay, I have no issue with us going through with an RFP, but I do agree with staff that an RFQ is proper before making some sort of contractual decision. Okay,
So I guess if we go back to that, then if we're going to discuss an RFP, a request for a proposal, that we're going to write that request for the proposal. In the proposal, you're requesting their qualifications, their costs, all those issues go into a proposal.
You can't do
Yes,
that.
they do.
An
We
RFP,
can request for a proposal, which is simply a request for information.
no ma'am. A request for proposal, you're asking for a price, and you cannot alter from that price. It's sealed bids. Where a request for qualifications is you're just going out and getting qualifications of someone, you may not even do that.
Request for proposal is we're asking them to give us what they would do for a price, includes their qualifications, includes their bios, includes everything.
I would,
In governmental contracting, a request for a proposal
It's,
includes all of that.
I would just say,
Versus the request for qualification
hold on.
is a subset of the RFP, but
I read the exception where professional services is excluded in the government code.
From sealed bid.
No, in the government code, the 22-254, in the definitions, professional services is listed, real estate appraising is listed. And then when you go to the next page, 22-5403, a governmental entity may not select a provider of professional services or a group or an association provider or award a contract for services on the basis of competitive bids, may not, submitted for the contract or the services, but shall make the selection and award on the basis of demonstrated competency and qualifications. That's why you have to do it through the queue, in my opinion. I'm not an
But
attorney.
okay, but that's what I'm trying to say here. An RFQ in professional governmental contracting language, which I do have 10+ years at the state level in higher education. An RFQ stands for request for quote. An RFP stands for request for proposal. Now, just because the law states qualifications, you can't, nowhere in here do I read request for qualifications. It says that it's based on demonstrative competence and qualifications. But what you're gonna issue out to, in the newspaper ordinance specifically to targeted companies is, we're asking you to submit to us a package of what you will do. And that's a proposal. They will propose to us, this is the services we'll provide, here's our qualifications to perform them, and here's our cost. That's an entire package or a proposal. Within that proposal, yes, they must meet certain qualifications. But by contract law, federal contract law, an RFQ stands for a request for a quote. And that does not
state. Maybe
Well,
that's
so,
very different from state.
If I make a motion that if.
I don't read
I was
this to
speaking-
say request for qualifications.
All right.
It says that before you issue that contract, it must be on the basis of demonstrated competence and qualifications. Just because we're using that word Q for qualifications doesn't necessarily mean to change that.
All right, so I want to take back, I make a motion that says discuss and take possible action on request for proposal for private appraisal firm to perform appraisal services for the district, to include all categories not covered by current contract.
We'll second the motion.
Okay?
Now we're looking for discussion on that. Hang on, there's a point of order here. I know, but there's a
I
point
would
of order.
question.
Yes, ma'am, of course. All right, so is there any discussion on the
So
board?
now we have discussion on the way you stated the agenda item, correct?
Yes, is there any? Mr. Roper?
No.
All right, no discussion. All right, I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor? On an aye?
I'm an aye for proposal. I'd like to see what's out there. It's simple as that. I'd like to see what's out there.
That's 3-0. Okay, so I'll check with legal afterwards and see. Next, moving on to the discuss and take possible actions of insurance of RFP for legal services to represent separately the Aransas County Appraisal District Board of Directors and the Aransas County Appraisal Review Board. Mr. Wagner, would you like to speak on this, or would you like to speak afterwards?
Well, I can make a few comments to start things off.
Yes, sir, if you could, and if you could stand up, because we may have some questions for you too to help us with some clarification, if that's okay.
Make it easier.
Yes, sir, thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, first of all, I'd say thank you for coming, sir. I know you had other things to do, it's not appraisal season, so, road test season, so I appreciate it.
No, the heart of the issue here is that the board of directors does not have any authority to deal with the ARB's attorney.
Yes, sir.
And 6.43, and in particular, 6.43E says an appraisal district may not require the board to employ a specific attorney or legal counsel.
Of course.
Sorry?
I said of course.
Okay. So consequently, any action on RFP or whatever dealing with the ARB's attorney is not something you guys can have any jurisdiction on.
Okay, if I can, can you tell me, what does, I'm not asking questions out of, because I don't know. Do y'all use this attorney quite frequently, or how do y'all use this attorney?
We reach out for legal advice, which is what the attorney can do for us, on a number of issues that come up during appraisals.
Did you reach out to, so when you have a question on the appraisals for your side, you only reach out to this guy, you don't reach out to the other lawyer? Is that correct?
We have, there are two attorneys involved here. You guys have your own attorney.
Yes, sir.
The ARB has a separate attorney. Real briefly, I'll run through the situation with that attorney. The ARB had an attorney that had represented the ARB for probably 5 years. About 3 years ago, he was vociferous in saying he didn't want to do that work anymore. He claimed, and rightfully so, it was not his area of specialty. He was not an attorney that dealt with tax law. And had been trying for a number of years prior to when I became the ARB chairman, trying to disengage. So I finally said, fine, we'll consider finding another attorney. I asked for some referrals. I got some referrals and went out and did due diligence on a couple of them. The one that we chose, who is Judy Hargrove. At the time that we looked at retaining her, she had 7 counties that she represented as ARB clients. We became the 8th. That was 3 years ago. And I don't know, I haven't asked her since then whether she's picked up any other additional ARB clients. So the board of directors has their attorneys. The ARB has a separate attorney, and it has to be based on the code. It cannot be the same attorney or have any kind of interrelationship.
Okay, yes, sir.
Another question?
Yes. Have y'all, if I can ask you, have y'all considered, have you considered working with the county attorney's office as opposed to a outside lawyer?
We have, and the code says that we can,
Yes, sir.
use the county attorney if we want. It does not say that we need to use the county attorney. And we have not. Because primarily it's one of background and qualifications. You know, just the same situation we had with the prior attorney who stated, he said, you know, he's as good as anybody at researching, but he's not a tax attorney. And so, and that to be honest, with the prior attorney, it would take us, I won't say an inordinate amount of time, clearly a period of time, a quantum of time that we had to deal with. He had to go research something as opposed to having the in-depth familiarity with the tax.
On that, do you have the way you understand it is that we provide the budget for it and you determine who the lawyer, y'all determine who the lawyer is. So have y'all signed you do not have a letter of engagement or anything like that?
No, we don't have a contract, and that was actually questioned when we engaged her. And I also talked to several other attorneys that represented ARBs, and they say they generally do not have contracts for this type of engagement. They're like a retainer situation or any of that kind of thing.
So there's no sort of document that expresses expectations that we have for that lawyer to sort of For instance, the reason I asked, Beville's lawyer comes and they have a half-day training session, their ARB with their lawyers. Does our lawyer engage us in any way like that?
No.
Okay.
She would if we requested it, but we didn't request it.
And so, buildings, if you don't have a letter of.
I'm sorry?
If you don't have a letter of engagement, sorry.
Well, we do have something that reflects the rate.
Do you,
Is
I'm
that
sorry.
negotiated? Is that negotiated on a regular basis, or they just basically inform you that that's the price?
That is the price. We did check to see, and we determined that it was not outside the norms.
Okay.
It was not, yeah, it was a reasonable.
You know what that, it's like an hourly rate?
$195.
Yeah.
And it's billed in a 10 or 15 minute increment.
I honestly don't know. I could look at one of the invoices and so on, but, and the district has those invoices.
yes, sir.
I just out of curiosity, man, if you got the invoices, that's great. I just, maybe you can, how much time are we talking about here? Like in a typical year? I mean, is it 10 hours, 50 hours?
I don't know. I've not scrutinized. We could look at one, you know, it's so cyclical, okay? And it's just based on dealing with appraisals.
Yeah.
The appraisal reviews and protests and so on. And without getting into a lot of specific details, we've had some very interesting situations to deal with from a legal standpoint. And things that we try and accommodate through processes and procedures, how you deal with protests, and not only protests, but there's also motions to correct, any kind of communications that we have to deal with respect to records. Chief, for example, will go through our procedures just to make sure you understand in the boardroom there, they're seeing the two things on the wall, which are our procedures. It's two big posters. Yeah. We didn't invent those. The state gave them to us, per se, and we have to abide by the state's hearing procedures. We can deviate as long as it doesn't run counter to what the state's procedures are. But she reviews those to make sure that those are all in line, that we haven't done anything that violates anything.
Well, to your point about it being improper for this board to have any sort of purview or try to take any purview, if you will, over the ARB legal representation, that point was taken. What I'd like to do, we're already open for discussion, what I'd like to do is amend. I make the motion that we amend agenda item number 4 and remove the words separately.
If I might suggest something.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
It's okay for you to make a motion that you're not going to, that you cannot take action on something. That's okay, and that would require you not having to amend your published meeting notice.
Right.
That might be a suggestion.
Okay, thank you. I think we just need to take up the motion, or we need to go ahead and take up the matter number 4, but strike the language that includes the Aransas County Prison.
Okay, I second that.
Can I ask a question on this?
Yes, ma'am. You have it. Colleen, a call for the vote.
Okay, hang on. So the motion is made to discuss and take possible action on the issuance of an RFP for legal services to represent the Aransas County Appraisal District Board of Directors, period.
Yes, ma'am.
That's your motion?
Yes.
And I don't know if there is any other discussion from other members or other people here relative to the first part of that.
Yes, ma'am. If we could.
Yeah, once we
And I
go
see
to
you have nothing to.
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
so yeah, we have
You have a motion and a second.
I didn't have. Okay. you don't vote for it, that's not my, thank you.
We're voting just to amend the motion.
Just a minute.
Okay, so. Yes, I'll call for the vote. Aye.
I, so, for,
Yes, ma'am.
So, I thank you, Mr. Wagner, I learned some things I did not know. So, if I understood Mr. Wagner correct, y'all already have two separate attorneys?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm confused in what y'all are wanting to, y'all wanted to change attorneys for the board?
I mean, we just want, I would like to look at other attorneys that are available. And our current attorney is out of Austin. And we've had quite a few, I've looked over the billables, and we've had quite a few trips that are from Austin down here to turn in paperwork. That I'd just like to go out and see what other law firms are available. One of my things is just personally, and this is, I think it's better if you have a lawyer that's close to you, if they're qualified, and if we could keep our local taxpayer dollars within our region, I prefer that.
Okay, that answers my question. The way I read this, y'all were wanting to separate and get two different attorneys, I didn't realize that already happened, so.
Yes, ma'am, I didn't either, so we both learned something today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It is written that way, though. It says discuss and take possible action on the issuance of RFP for legal services to represent separately
Yes, and we
the
changed.
Aransas County.
We changed that.
So you were saying separately, and that was inclusive of the ARB, and you've done that. Okay. So now you're just going for RFPs for another legal counsel. Okay.
Yeah, that's, the motion on the table is to discuss and take possible action on the issuance of an RFP for legal service to represent the Aransas County Appraisal District Board of Directors. That's the motion on the table,
Yeah. The
not separately.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's removed.
Roger that. So the only thing that I would say is that I think this falls under the same RFQ thing where it's a professional service. I could be wrong. I am not an attorney, so I don't make that claim, but I do. The way I read it, it's an RFQ rather than RFP. But yeah, I don't have any issue. So.
So I'd like to make a motion that we issue an RFP for legal services to represent the Aransas County Appraisal District Board of Directors. Do I have a second to that motion?
So the discussion, how are we, I mean, it says RP, are we sending that to certain individuals, or is this something we post?
This is good questions as well. So to answer that, I think the way that we best can do this is post it on our website. That we are seeking these. And I am not too sure what because when I went, I talked to, you had known him from Victoria. Gooch, yes. He said that we didn't need to, I asked him about the process, and he said, we could just find a law firm and say, hey, do you want to, this is what he said. And not giving legal advice, but what I'd like to be is just transparent when we go out for both of these and say, hey, look, we have these, we're requesting these things. They're on our website. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. I do not know if there's an industry, I don't know if there's an industry newsletter for appraisal, for the appraisers. I do know that we can inform the Texas Association of Appraisal Districts of this, but my main thing was just to put it on the website and then go through and contact people and ask them. I just wanted it to be clear what we were trying to do.
Yeah, legal representation is a little bit different than when you go out for other services, because it is representation, and I don't think you have to take the lowest bid. I don't think it has to be sealed or anything like that.
If it's an RFP, it does.
I think that
And I'll
The way
I'll
this is
qualify that this way. I know that the rules, the government rules of state of Texas and the school district, now, I don't know federal and if it's all entities, it may be a little different, but I know the rules that the school district has to follow. If we go out on RFP, that is request for proposal. That is a price, you look at the price and that's it. There's no seal, it's sealed, this one, sorry. It's sealed, there's no scoring in there like we talked about having more, more specialty in rooftop versus commercial. An RFQ is a request for qualification, where again, you're just looking at qualifications, that's what we do for legal services, and we do for contractors. You're looking at their qualifications, not looking at price only, and you score them based on, and in your RFQ, you say, this is how it's gonna score, this, rooftop is gonna have 5 points, and industrial is gonna have 2 points, or whatever you set up, but that is all put in your RFQ. But again, that is the school districts, and I may not be there, that's why again, I would request y'all to check with your own legal, if y'all are under different
Yes, ma'am.
laws in the state.
First of all, we follow municipalities, so we don't follow the school district. laws.
Okay, and they
Yes,
may
ma'am.
be the same, I didn't request to do that.
I think legal representation is a little different than other professional services. I think I'll just leave it at that. I think it's different, and there's probably a whole series of laws that conflict. With
Would you just like to,
Well, I would like to make a statement.
yes, ma'am.
When I originally read this agenda, my understanding was we're gonna discuss, take possible action on the issuance of an RFP. We don't actually have an RFP to issue yet. So, but this is step one in us putting together something. My understanding was we're probably gonna have a second meeting where then we as a board can look at what we are gonna post out there. So you guys already kind of jumped the gun on me here and started talking about posting stuff. So my understanding was, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I misunderstood the purpose of this agenda item, was this is kind of like our first reading. Are we even interested in knowing what's out there? And my answer has always been yes. So the second step is, I may have to take back my vote, is what I'm trying to get at with y'all is, if this is to say, okay, here we go, we're gonna put something together and post it out there, I'm not ready for that yet. But I'm ready for us to put something together, and we're gonna come back and agree that this is the RFQ or RFP that's going to go out there, and where it's gonna go, when it's gonna go, how long it's gonna sit out there, 30 days, is this, what are we doing? That all has to be identified. This is simply, are we wanting to go down that route?
So I think the way we meet that out is of the word action. We decide what that action is.
That's what I'm saying. So if I'm taking action here, I'm just simply saying, now I'm in agreement that I'd like to know what is available, what services are available out there, if any, or, but before I don't think any of us are ready to issue an actual white paper out there.
No, we're not around that.
I think this
Okay.
is just a
So
sense of
we're gonna have
direction.
that's exactly right, that was my understanding of the agenda item.
And my
And I'm
question,
glad y'all brought up a lot of the details that are gonna need to go into that. But I don't think in any way we're ready today to actually issue that document. But what we're saying as a board is, we are interested in knowing what's out there. We need information, and that maybe goes back to answer that why it's a proposal. I don't even know what's out there. You can propose to me what you even are able to do. So, if that
And
makes
again, I
sense,
would say, be very careful if you're gonna do that, which I appreciate you
we're
saying
not ready
that.
to do that. We're not.
2025, I don't see this happening in 2025. If you're gonna do that step and then go out, you're looking at no time frame to do that.
That would be, yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong too, but is that not what the agenda item states?
right? So we decide.
We
what the
haven't
action is.
issued yet,
Right.
we don't have a document to issue yet. We have only discussed and took action, we've agreed that we will put together an RFP, but we haven't issued, because this is missing a whole lot if we're that far in.
We don't have to.
That's what I mean, we don't have anything.
So yes.
So we will have a second meeting open to the public, and I'm assuming at that point then, when we have some packet together, it will be made public. For us to, for y'all, for the public to come to us and say, hey, this is wrong, that's wrong, we will receive your input. This was just the beginning step for that. Back to you.
Can I ask a request of you, Colleen, if you're
Yes.
on the board,
Yes.
if you are representing the school district?
Yes.
When a meeting comes up, can you personally email Dr. Austin and myself? Because we were made aware of this, yes, I know you posted it, but I don't know.
I know.
I mean, and so I'm not aware of the meetings
Okay.
are, because they're not on a set day.
I know.
If you could let us know when that is, I would appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you.
So when,
Will you, can you give me?
Yes,
an
ma'am,
email?
what you have for you?
just a question, possibly a suggestion, but in other communities where I live, there's, if you go to whatever government entity, give your email address, they just have a mass email list that they continually add to. Do we have something like that for our board meetings or?
Yeah,
does
so
the chairman need to be?
The chairman, typically, how it's happened most recently has been the chairman has said, here's the date. And he says, here's the posting. And then Nancy and myself, we get not only the agenda together, but we notify the rest of the board, here's the date, the time of and then we start gathering the documents associated with the agenda. So,
Is there an opportunity for us to, whether it's staff or whether it's our chairman, I would prefer it be staff, that way it has more longevity, to start preparing a mass email list of members of the community, and then anybody who puts in a request, hey, put me on your list. I
yeah,
don't want to overburden staff, but I mean,
Yeah.
is that something
we could do that. We'll make sure and put the comptroller on first of the
We
list.
are
Miss Austin.
always notice, give a notification on your budget, because that does directly affect it. So we get that letter, when we get that letter,
We're, okay.
I know,
If I could, do we have a motion on the table? Do we need to amend the motion?
Mr. Hood,
Yes,
may I
sir.
be heard on a small item?
Yes, sir.
Suggestion,
Yes, sir.
and I won't speak from the chair, you can slap me if you want. It would seem to me that because you're trying to decide, is it a request for performance, or request for qualifications, to not have to do it twice. Make a 5-minute phone call to the attorney that you do and say, we're talking about attorney services. Is it at the level where we need to send out a request for qualification, so you don't do it twice? Follow me in the show.
Yeah, but I guess it's a distinction without a difference for me. I mean, whether we vote on something or not.
Well, it's really not. The request for proposal is a sealed bid in most instances. I've never seen one where it's not. And the request for qualification typically doesn't involve the dollars. It says what you're gonna do for us. Just a suggestion.
Doesn't matter to me, we're not gonna,
I mean, all right, so I'm gonna call the vote as is. I am gonna vote yay.
I'm gonna vote against for just the simple fact that if we're really not gonna actually take any action, I would rather us not start plowing a road that we got to then go back and cover up.
All right,
I know that.
that's fine.
I know that
That
this,
might be the loan code extension.
Secretary and Chairman, I know that this is not on the agenda, but in previous agendas, there was always like a thing to say what is on the next agendas.
And I'm sorry, Mike, I left that off.
And I want to bring this to your attention. I'm just going to say it out loud. We've talked about the Ag Advisory Board on multiple occasions. Guys, if I don't have one in the next 15 days, bad things happen to the district, okay? And I've been asking for this since February. You weren't even part of the board at that time.
Hold on.
I thought we had.
We haven't had it. We voted on it.
I don't know
Yes.
that, okay, well, I'll go back in the minutes and
It's
look.
3 members, is that correct?
That's all I need is 3. That's all
So
I
we
need.
had, if we could,
We'll
this
look
is
at the
a,
minutes.
I
please.
think they were gonna ask, but we never got an actual answer as to whether.
So we had, if I can clarify, we had 2 situations. The first time was when whose place did you take? Mr. Mosier. Mr. Mosier had suggested X number of people, which I believe it was 3, and none of them were turned out to be good, but we approved them on the condition that they would be good. And then you brought in one other person, and I believe we have on our, the people we approved was,
I'll go back and
Mr.
look.
Schumann, Mr. Picarazzi is one of them, and not
Mr.
Picarazzi.
Rourke.
No,
Mr.
and also Nessaloni.
No, Rourke and Nessaloni, I believe.
Rourke
So
and
I'll
Nessaloni.
look at the minutes to make sure that it accurately reflects, but if not, can we take an action item next time, please?
Absolutely.
The next thing that you have to get done before the end of the year is a 2-year extension on the bank depository. It's just a thing that you extend with it says that, hey, we're the signatories for this stuff.
So who currently do we have?
Prosperity Bank.
Prosperity Bank?
And so they'll provide us a form that we just fill out, but it's gonna be an action item.
Yeah, require 2 signatures
If I remember, it does, yeah.
from board members.
Yes.
Going back to ag deal, if I could, just real quick, what are the qualifications, Greg? I know I've seen them before.
You have to actively be doing ag in this county.
There's no minimum acreage requirement.
There are, within each category, these are different than regular
Okay, so as
ag.
long as there's an ag exemption that's tied to that person's.
That's
parcel.
correct. They have to be an owner of the property. They have to be doing ag. And that was the problem with the first 3. They were managers of the property, but they weren't the owners of the property.
Okay.
So
If I believe correctly, is there there's a residency requirement on that?
that's correct. They have to be in the
No,
county.
then they have to live in the county.
None of it's happened, it's lived in this county, right?
No.
They were living for
No, you just have to be an owner of the property.
But if like the Tatton boys, Tatton Ranch, they live across the county line, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, would they qualify?
I have to look at the statute, but you have to be an owner of the property and doing ag.
But not necessarily residing.
Not necessarily residing. And the last thing is, out of all these minutes and resolutions, we have to have them for our methods and procedures, map review, we have to have them. So if you can get them to Nancy, it would be great, so.
Yeah, in fact, back to something he had mentioned, I think that the holder of the minutes of meeting still needs to be you guys.
Excellent, that's great,
Okay? So yeah, so when they're signed, we get them over to you guys and you maintain the records.
sounds great, thank you.
Okay? So that brings something up, and the ones that we've signed today, that we have approved today, we are gonna need, Anna Marshall to sign for the ones that were approved, the 24th and the 15th. I'm the secretary then, is what all I'm saying. Okay, so, I mean, I can run them to her, see if she can sign them. The 13th will need corrected, we'll get that on the next agenda item. And then I'll sign these today and submit them to you guys as the holder of the record. I think that's the appropriate way to go.
And the resolutions from a couple of meetings ago also. We need a copy of that.
Yeah, you guys really should be holding it.
To go back to what we talked about, because we're gonna need to look at it, I wanna read appointing the board. It says the agricultural advisory board must have at least 3 members. These members may be appointed by the chief appraiser with the advice of council of the board of directors. The chief appraiser may appoint more than 3 members, again, with the advice and consent of the board of directors. The law specifies the qualification of the 3 members, required members. 2 members of the advisory board must be qualified among the agricultural timber of the district who have lived in the district for at least 5 years.
Well, there's the.
Yeah, so for 2 of them, 1 member must be representative of the agricultural stabilization and conversion service in the appraisal district, and this might be the wrong place. No, forget that. I'm getting it wrong. Anyway, I think I was getting 1991.
Oh, it is there on, what date is this? Agenda, June 13th, you had an action item that says to motion to approve Jen Schumann, Nessaloni, and Rourke. So y'all got it done. They don't have to do anything else. Thank you very much.
So we're good on
Resident of
that
the
board?
district for at least 5 years, serves a 2-year term.
Yeah.
All of those individuals have been here for more than.
Okay, you have one other, I believe there might have been one other, on there that, was it not, I thought there were 3 items, as you said.
The last one was the resolution.
resolution.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Okay,
So
so,
would you prefer there to be more than 3 members of the ag committee?
No, not really. I mean, as long as they all just make one meeting, you know. It's kind of perfunctory. It's just matter of fact.
all right, so it is now 6:32. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? I make the motion. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed, nay. All in favor, aye. Aye, aye, aye. The meeting is adjourned at 6:32.